now that Next Evolution is out and I played through all the villains a decent amount, I figured it'd be fun to do another tier list. Now, this tier list isn't based off of power levels or anything like that. This is just my personal opinion of what I enjoy playing and what I don't enjoy playing, right? That's all this is. It's just very, very subjective of what I like in a villain, what I don't like in a villain, and then just kind of ranking them from my favorite to my least favorite. So that's all this is. If you want to do me a huge favor, make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, all that fun stuff. Leave a comment down below. Let me know some of your favorite villains, your least favorite villains, all that fun stuff. And if you haven't yet, make sure to go over to twitch.tv/D20 woodworking, hit follow, and turn on notifications there so you can hang out with us live, because we have a really great community in the live sector. It's a lot of fun. It's a really good time, and maybe I'm playing against some of these villains. Who knows? So anyway, let's pop over to the tier list and go through all these villains. All right, here we go. So here are our tier list. We have our favorite villains I like a lot, ones that are not bad, not a fan, and at the very bottom is Loki. We can just skip ahead and just put Loki there. I cannot stand Loki. Loki is my least favorite design. I don't think he's enjoyable. I don't think he's fun. I don't think he's interesting. There's nothing I like about Loki. I'll be completely honest. I think he's just a slog and he's boring. Whatever. I could go on about Loki for a while. So anyway, Loki gets his own tier because that's how bad I think he is overall. So that's that. Anyway, so let's go through the rest. We're going to go through them alphabetically and just talk a little bit, very little bit, about what I like and don't like about them. So we'll start off with Absorbing Man. Absorbing Man's biggest problem is that he's super easy. Even on an expert, he's really, really easy. Now, it's still not a terrible scenario on expert. Like, it's a little bit more challenging, but it's not one that I love. So honestly, I'm not a fan of Absorbing Man. He's probably gonna be near the bottom of this not a fan list. There's not a lot of redeeming qualities for Absorbing Man. Now, again, on expert, he's a bit better, but he's not fantastic, right? After that, we have Collector 1, which I'm really not a fan of. Now, I dislike Loki more than Collector 1. And Collector 1's biggest problem is the collection section, where like he collects his own cards. That's so silly. I mean, I'm sorry. I still don't understand that to this day. That design choice where he gets to collect his own cards. It does not make sense. It's not thematic, right? There's nothing good about it. So I do not enjoy that at all. Unfortunately, with Collector 1. So I played him a few more times recently to just like make sure with this list that like I wanted him that low, and I do. He's just not fun. But speaking about Collector 1, I feel like Collector 2 gets a bad rap because of Collector 1. Right? When you first go through the scenario and you have this terrible experience with Collector 1, then you immediately have to go against Collector 2. It almost felt like you were getting cheated out of a villain as well. Because again, Guardian's Most Wanted box was the second big box that we had, and we didn't have that many options, and now we're getting like 2 collectors, and really like Collector's not that iconic, so why are we doing that? Like, it felt very weird at the time. Later on, I appreciate it more now, and Collector 2's design I think is more interesting. Even though it's a lot of threat removal, I feel like you can still handle it, right? Even with handle it with like an attack heavy hero such as like Hulk, right? I've done Hulk against Collector 2, and Hulk can actually win this battle, which is actually pretty cool and pretty fun. So the design of Collector 2 isn't nearly as bad as I thought it was in the beginning. I just feel like he got a lot of negativity because of how bad Collector 1 is. So Collector 2, not bad, slowly moving up. I don't know if he'll get higher than that ever, but like still, it's not terrible considering where he used to be. All right, next up we have Crossbones. I'm not a fan of Crossbones. I know a lot of people like Crossbones. I don't like setting up that many encounter and modular sets, right? So you have to do Crossbones. You have to do standard and possibly expert if you're playing that way. You have to do experimental weapons. Then you need to add 3 more, right? 7 sets is just too many sets, right? It's just too many. I like playing Marvel Champions because it's very quick and it's very snappy, right? I like that I can, generally speaking, except for like really hard challenges, I could throw together a good deck that I know that it will do well, play it against a villain, and that villain will take 2 seconds to set up, right? It won't take that long at all. So I don't really enjoy that whole process, right? I just don't enjoy everything that goes with it, the cleanup and teardown time. It's not that Crossbones is a bad villain by any means. Actually, Crossbones is quite enjoyable. He can be a really good villain to play against. On expert, he's a pretty decent difficulty, but he's just not. I just don't want to go through all that cleanup and setup and cleanup process. Like, I just don't want to do that. I'd rather just play somebody else. So unfortunately, Crossbones doesn't get played as much as he probably should, because there's just too many sets I have to pull out, and it's not enjoyable. It's not what I like about this game. So anyway, Crossbones, not a fan. I'll still play him now and again, but not that often. After that, we have a picture of Dr. Octopus for the Sinister Six encounter set. I like this encounter set a lot. I think it's really cool the design space they did with this. I like that there's multiple villains out there, or there can be multiple villains out there. The whole escaping from a tunnel thing is pretty cool. The decks work well off each other. Like, it's really just fun and balanced, I think, overall. It's pretty cool, pretty enjoyable. So it's up there for now. I think it stayed up there for a decent amount of time. On expert, it's a really good challenge. I think it's really well balanced between expert and standard, right? I think there's a good jump there. So I really like that encounter set overall. The only thing I hope is that some of those villains get their own encounter sets, like Dr. Octopus and whatnot, and others. Electro, I think, is in there, and Craven and whatnot. I hope they all get their own encounter sets eventually. I hope this is not it for the Spider-Man cycle, but that's just a me personal thing. So next we have a Drang, who I'm not a big fan of Drang. The reason being is because you start with a resource generator right away with the Milano ship, and it's just a little too strong. It's a little too powerful. Now, for a first scenario villain out of a box, like, he's fine. He's fine. I don't make it seem like he's bad. It's just I'd rather play other things. I don't love his. I just don't love the resource generator in the beginning, right? I feel like he was almost set up to be like a test pilot for decks, to test out your decks, and I feel like I just can't do that with him because he's not good enough to do that. Or not that he's not good enough. He's too easy to do that. On expert, he's a little harder with his spear. So he's not. He's in between, not a fan and not bad. He's somewhere in the middle there. I do think I like Collector 2 more though, but I don't know. It's just starting with a resource generator, I think, makes things like just a little too easy. So I don't love that. But yeah, other than that, I mean, he's all right. He's an all right villain. So speaking of first scenario villains, we have Ebony Maw, who I actually like as a first scenario. I think it's pretty good for a first scenario villain. I like the idea of the spells with the counters out there. I like that. Like, it's one of the few games where you can see like the terrible thing that's about to happen and you can kind of like plan for it. Like, I kind of like that. There's some added depth and strategy to that. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm actually a big fan of Ebony Maw and his design. I think on expert, he's a really good challenge. I think he's really fun. So Ebony Maw, big fan of. I think is a really good first scenario. He is somebody I will test some decks against because I feel like he's pretty well balanced. But yeah, I really like Ebony Maw. Next up, we have Hela, who has been my favorite scenario overall, and it's still one of my favorites. I'm not going to say it's my absolute favorite still, because she's gotten kind of samey, right? The problem is, once you've kind of figured out the pattern and the mechanic, there's not a ton of difference in what you're doing. It is, I don't want to say the same thing over and over, because again, on expert, it's a good challenge. On standard, it's still a challenge. You still have to face an elite minion, worry about a side scheme, and then worry about Hela. You still have to like figure out when to time your flips. But like, once you've learned how to time your flips, like, it's much easier. Like, understanding when to flip Hela to the next scheme, right? So that when she flips, like, you don't lose too much, or you don't boost her up too much. Like, once you understand that whole mechanic, like, she's not as bad, but she's still fun. She's still one of the more interesting scenarios I feel like out there. I think it's pretty neat. It's pretty interesting. So yeah, so she's definitely a favorite of mine. I think she will stay up there for quite some time, but I don't know if she's number one anymore. She used to be number one. We'll have to see when this whole tier list shakes out if she still is. But yeah, I think she's still fun and enjoyable. All right, next I have a picture of Hope's Captor as the card. This is the On the Run from the Next Evolution box. Hope's Captor, I think, is not bad, right? I don't love it, and I think that part of the problem is depending on which Marauder you get, dictates how difficult this scenario is going to be. I think the scenario is fine, right? I think like I said, I think it's not bad. I don't love it, but it's probably higher up in the not bad sector. As far as it on expert, even on expert, I don't think it's that bad of a scenario. Not that it's like easy, but it's not like terrible. If you've seen my previous video where I kind of run through and review the box, my whole argument with this whole box is that it's a little bit on the easier side, which isn't bad. I think mechanically On the Run is fun and enjoyable. But it's not bad right now. I think it can move up a little bit, but I think it has a better chance of moving down, to be honest. But I will put it at the top of not bad. It could push up to like a lot, like it'd be like kind of at the very, very end of that. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see where it officially shakes out in the long run after like a year or two. But I think for right now, it's not bad. It's not a bad scenario. Now, also speaking about next evolution, is Juggernaut. I love Juggernaut. I think he is so incredibly fun. Now, don't get me wrong. As of right now, there is a pretty good system to beat him, which just spamming toughs, using kind of like a perfect defense strategy, just basically not using chump blockers, right? I think he's very fair in the amount of damage he can do because like he can boost himself up to like swing and do like 9 damage, right? Just like Ronan can. He can do as much damage as Ronan can, but like you can see it coming and you can see it building up. And I like that idea. I like that mechanic. I like how it works. I'm a huge fan of his design. I think they did a really good job with Juggernaut. I think he's a lot of fun. I think on expert he's still a challenge. I don't think he's overly hard, but I still think he's a fair challenge. I think timing down your flips is really important. There's more strategy to Juggernaut than I thought there was going to be, which I think is really kind of exciting and cool. I think it's just fun. It's just a fun scenario overall. And plus, like thematically, he makes a lot of sense and he feels neat. Like he's a fun villain. He's just a fun, well-designed villain. So he's still a favorite of mine. He's not going to be at the tippity top or anything like that, but he's definitely up there because I think he's just super enjoyable. Now, to go almost the exact opposite of that is Kang. I am not a fan of Kang at all. If you watch my live streams over on Twitch, a lot of people will say like, oh, you should play Kang or whatever. I do not enjoy him. I do not think he's a good solo villain. Multiplayer, he makes a lot more sense because what is it, second stage or whatever, when like you split out into your different game boards, like that's a cool way of doing things. That's fun. For solo, it's boring. It's boring. I don't want to play him. I don't find him enjoyable. He's more interesting than Loki and Collector 1, that's for sure. And I'd rather do him over those. But other than that, like I don't know. He's just not fun. I just don't enjoy Kang. So he stays down there. But if I'm playing multiplayer, he'd probably be a bit higher. But for a solo playthrough, like, no, thank you. All right, next up we have what's his name? I cannot think of his name. Claw. Claw is basically my test villain at this point. Like he can be challenging on expert. He's not bad on standard, but he's just a really good test villain overall. I feel like he's very well balanced, but he's not overly hard, so he's not bad, right? That's all he is. Like he's not someone I'm just playing for fun. He's just someone I'm playing to basically test a deck against at this point. Because like I said, I think him and his modular system, the way that he works, is very balanced. I think he can beat you several different ways, but he's not overwhelming in any of those ways. So I like Claw for what he is, but he's not like amazing or anything like that. So Claw is probably going to pretty close to like right in the middle. Now Magneto was our number 5 villain from the last box. Magneto, I think, was the most fair and balanced final villain we've ever had in Marvel Champions. I really like Magneto. I think he is really well done. He is up there in my favorites. He actually is probably higher than Juggernaut. He is up there in my favorites. I think he's super awesome, super fun. It's a really good challenge. Even when you know how to beat him, right, and you have him solved, like it's still difficult to execute that plan, which is I think what makes him so interesting and so much fun, right? When we talk about like with Juggernaut and the way that like you execute your plan to beat him is basically throwing toughs out there, right, or doing a perfect defense. With Magneto, it's understanding when his magnet counters are going to be used, when to flip the main scheme. Like even understanding that and how much you should be doing the side scheme, putting it into practice is still difficult, and it's really difficult on expert. He's after several stage 5 villains in a row where we had Ronan, we had Loki, and we had Venom Goblin. He was the first one that happened in a long time that felt fair, balanced, but yet a really good challenge. And I really appreciate the design of Magneto. He's still one of my favorite villains to play against. So he's up there in favorites for sure. Now, next up, we have Magog from the Mojo pack. I like Magog a good amount. I feel like now that I've played him a fair amount, he's a little bit easier with trying to rush him on the counters and trying to make sure it doesn't hit you so the cheer counters don't go up and all that stuff. He's a little bit easier, but I still think he's a really cool scenario. I think he's designed really well. I think he's fun. On expert, he's a really good challenge. So I like him a lot. I think he's bounced around between not bad and like a lot and high. I think he's going to kind of fall the lower, like a lot, high, not bad, somewhere in that range. But yeah, Magog, I think is fun. I think he's cool. He's enjoyable. I like him a lot. Next up, we have a picture of Blob. This is for the mansion attack one, right? A mansion attack is kind of similar to Sinister Six, but not really. I mean, it's similar in the sense that like there's multiple villains, but they don't like all come out there or anything like that. I like it. It's just there's a decent amount of rules to remember. Of like you have to remember what the whatchamacallit, the main scheme like adds like plus attack or hand size or steady or whatever, right? Just make sure you pay attention to that because that can be forgetful. And I like it. I like it. I like the scenario. I think it's a really well done scenario. I think it's fun. I played it a little too much for a while and then I had to back off, and it's still good, but I think it's like less fun, I guess. Nah, it's still fun. I still like it a lot. I guess I still like it a lot. I like on expert. I still think the Sinister mode or Sinister Six battle is more fun. But I like the mansion attack one. I think it's pretty cool in the way that it works. So after that, we have Master Mold. The problem with Master Mold is I don't mind him, right? He's not bad, but he's easy. He's really easy. Like he's really easy. And we'll get into this with Sentinels too, but the Magneto ally I think is a little too powerful, a little too good. And it's just I don't know. He just makes the scenario very easy. I think even without Magneto, it'd still be a very easy scenario, or it is because I play without it. It's still an easy scenario, so it's not as good. And Magneto, like, you just don't want him to flip down, right? Or you don't want to scheme because then I think that's when he brings in minions, right? But I don't know. Magneto is, or not Magneto. Master Mold. Sorry, Master Mold is just kind of whatever. He's just a whatever scenario. I don't love him. I don't hate him. It's just he's kind of there really. I think he's fine. He's nothing great. He's just fine. I'll play him when I have to, but we'll do soldier or the sentinel one in a little bit. But sentinel's the same exact thing. Like it's fine. It's nothing enjoyable, or not that it's not enjoyable, but it's nothing mesmerizing. It's nothing super notable. It's just okay. All right, next up we have Mr. Sinister from the new box, and Mr. Sinister, he's not bad. He's not bad. He's definitely up there. He might go into like a lot. He's kind of in between the two of them. I think he's enjoyable. I think he's an okay difficulty. He's not super hard. Depending on which one of the main schemes come in between, like, there's the 3 or whatever. Depending on which one comes in. Okay. I like the idea at least that they're having the third stage attack Hope, because one of my big complaints of this box is that Hope is in the last 3 scenarios, which I don't love. And I like that at least the stage 3 like actively goes after Hope, so you're kind of like balancing that. I think for solo it's a little rough with the main scheme only having 5 total threat threshold, and then it goes up by 2. You can't really flip down, so it kind of like limits what you can do with your hero, which is like not a bad challenge, right? It's not bad, but it kind of just it pigeonholes you in what you can do because of that design space. So again, I don't mind Mr. Sinister. I think he's fine. I don't think he's overly difficult to beat. But I think because you can't flip down, there's only so many things for solo. There's only so many things you really can do that, again, you kind of get stuck in this pattern of what you should do kind of over and over. And he just, I don't want to say feels samey. That's not the right way of putting it. But because I can only explore so many options, there's only so many ways to play against him, and I know those best ways now, and now I can just win more consistently against him because I'm only able to like play in this small space because of what they do on the 2B side scenario of the main schemes. So he's not bad, right? I don't hate him or anything like that. I think he'll float around in the middle for a while. But yeah, he's fine. All right, next up we have Mojo. Now I really need to say this first. The Mojo pack as a whole, I like a lot. I do not like the design of Mojo. I cannot stand it. I'll be completely honest with you. I cannot stand it. For solo, it's not good. I know people love Mojo, and that's fine. I think the problem with him is the Wheel of Genres card, the environment card that like flips back and forth. Because when it flips, and I want to bring this up so I read it correctly. At the start of step 3 of the villain phase, with the encounter cards, randomly choose one set aside modular set and reveal its show environment. That's all fine. Shuffle the rest of that modular set and place it on top of the encounter deck. Deal the first player 2 face down encounter cards and flip this card where it goes back to the regular side. All the modular sets kind of like work off each other, right? So you'll have an environment in, but like when the other cards flip up, something usually more negative happens, especially if there's other things related to that modular set. Having all those things stacked right at the top, like you're going to get crushed. every single time. So you just have to beat Mojo and Rush, right? Like he just falls into this pattern of, okay, I'll just rush against Mojo because it's the best way to beat him. But it's just, I don't like that concept of stacking the top of the deck with the same modular set, even if it's shuffled. There's only like what 6 or 7 cards in it, but I just don't enjoy that. Like I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's interesting. I think it's annoying. I think it's a really annoying design. I wish they would have just had it shuffled in. Dealing the 2 face down encounter cards, that's not terrible. But when you have these different cards, like I said, that play off of whatever the setting is, especially like immediately, like I don't know. It's not enjoyable. It's just not enjoyable. It's not fun. I don't like it. So anyway, yeah, I'm not a fan of Mojo. I don't really like playing him. Now it turns into, well, I just don't want the wheel to flip, so you just don't want his encounter pile to discard away. So I'll just play him Rush and then just win easily because he doesn't attack you for that much the entire time. So I'll just rush him, and then so it becomes a same fight over and over and over. Even on expert, he's not that hard. He has a lot of life, but he's not that hard. So I don't know. He's just I don't know. Whatever. Whatever. I could go on for Mojo for a while, but I just do not like the design of the wheel of putting all the cards on top. I just think that's bad and not enjoyable. All right, next up we have Morlock Siege, and I have a picture of a Morlock running, right? So it's not bad. It's probably around there-ish. It's not bad. The problem is it's really easy. It's a really easy scenario. And honestly, this is probably going to drop down to the bottom of not bad. I don't want to say I'm not a fan of it, because at least you can change the villain, and that form of being more modular is nice and kind of cool. But it's just, I don't know, it's just way too easy. It's way too easy to really just enjoy that much. Even on expert, it's a really easy scenario overall. So it's not it's just not bad, right? It's fine. It's not something I look for a challenge. It's something that I'll just play if it comes up. I don't know if it would ever be a not a fan. Maybe over time it might drop down if I end up playing it a lot. But it's just too easy. It's too easy of a scenario. But at the very least, you can change the villain that you're playing against. Right, or the with the villain it's different each time, or like the set of villains is different each time, so at least that makes it a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit better. On expert, it's at least a little bit more of a challenge, but still not that hard by any means. So not a big fan of the Morlock Siege one. Now next up is Mutant, I want to say Mutant Genesis, but that's not what it is. It's Green Goblin Mutagen Formula. I like this scenario a lot. He is very, very hard. He's very, very challenging, but he's very, very fair. And I think, especially on expert, it becomes one of those key things we learned early on, that you want to be able to stack your deck and get ready for when you flip this villain to stage 3, you want to win, right? You don't really want to deal with too many rounds of the third stage of Mutagen Formula. I think it's fun. I think it's really well done. I think on standard, it's still a good challenge, but it's not overly hard. Actually, I think I would put Juggernaut higher, but he's still one of my favorites. I still think he's really cool. I think the design is fun. I think it's overall really good. So he's definitely up there. I guess the biggest complaint is that he's just a little too hard. Maybe I don't know. I don't think that's really a complaint though. I think he's fine. I think he's fun. After that, we have Mysterio, who I like Mysterio. He's grown on me a bit more. At first, it was just kind of like, whatever about Mysterio, but I've started to like him more and appreciate his design more. It took time, but I feel like I'm liking it a good amount now. So Mysterio's up there. Like I said, he's difficult. I think the way that he puts his cards into your deck, I think is cool. I think it's a fun mechanic. I think it's interesting. At first, I wasn't as big of a fan of it because I was getting a lot of games where I was just winning really easily. But now, obviously, I've played more. It's not as easy as I once thought it was. So anyway, enjoy Mysterio. So I like him a lot, but he's probably gonna be lower in the list. After that, we have Nebula, who I used to like Nebula a lot. And God, she's so random. She's so random. And that's her problem. She's just so incredibly random that it's just not enjoyable. Like if you create a good deck and play Nebula 5 times, you will get probably 2 exceptionally easy games, like the easiest games you have ever played in your life, and you'll get games that are harder than Ronin, right? On the other 2, and then one that like might be in the middle. But I feel like it's one extreme or the other, and that's what you get with her, and that's not as enjoyable. Like I want to know going into a villain if I'm playing a difficult scenario, I want to know. If I'm playing an easier scenario, I want to know. I don't want it to be this completely random. Well, it depends on how it was shuffled, right? Like that I don't enjoy that as much as that design. She's not she I'm just not a fan of playing it anymore. She wasn't bad for a long time. I actually liked her for a long time because of that randomness. But now that we have more options, and I feel like I also at the time I was just that Guardians Most Wanted box is so rough that I was like looking for any type of win, any type of small win. And anyway, now that we've had more villains, I think she just drops lower and lower and lower. All right, then we have Sentinels. We talked a bit about this with Master Mold. I feel like they're very samey, the two of them. I'm not a big fan of Sentinels. I don't like the design. I don't think it's great. So it's not bad, right? It's not a bad design. It's just too easy with what's his face, Magneto. It's just a little too easy. And even on expert, it's not that much of a challenge. It can be hard now and again, but realistically, it's not that hard. And I don't know. It feels like the opposite Master Mold almost, where Master Mold, like you don't want to go down and scheme. Like Sentinels is right, collecting people, if I remember correctly. That's the Sentinel one. I see. I even blend the two of them together in my mind because they feel so not the same, but there's a bunch of similarities between them. But yeah, with the whole what is it? The Sentinel thing. After there's threat placed here, if there's at least 5 threat here, the first card places the top card of their deck face down under Operation Zero Tolerance, and then you remove 5 threat from there, and that does the whole Operation Zero Tolerance thing, which at least is like a better version of the collector of how that's working. Where collector is like collecting his own cards. Operation Zero Tolerance is collecting different mutants and whatnot, which is like at least a better design. I will give it that, but it's not like I don't know. It's okay, just okay. So anyway, not a huge fan of Master Mold or Sentinels, but they're not bad. After that, we have Red Skull, who I like a lot. Red Skull is just an old, solid, just good around villain. Just he's just good. I don't know how to put it other than that. I like the way he's designed. I think the whole side scheme deck is pretty interesting. I think it makes it tough if you're trying to do like a side scheme focus deck. That makes things a little bit harder, but that's okay. Like not every villain has to be able to do everything. But he's a good challenge. He's a really good challenge in the expert. I think he holds up well over time. He's a little bit more on the easier side now that the side schemes actually reward you for clearing out the things, like you get sometimes like a card or whatever. That's almost a little too easy, I think. But it's not bad, right? It's not bad overall. So I think he'll stay up there for a long time. I think he's enjoyable. I think he's withstood the test of time. I think with the modular sets, you can increase his difficulty if you want. But the whole mechanic of the side scheme deck, I still think is pretty cool and pretty enjoyable. All right, next up we have Rhino, who I don't enjoy Rhino. The problem with Rhino is that I think he ruined all solo players. Not all, he didn't ruin us, but for a long time, no one wanted to flip down for solo because of Rhino. I believe he's too punishing for solo to flip down, and he gets you stuck in this pattern of never wanting to flip down. Now, with a much larger villain pool, he's not as bad as he once was, right? He was probably lower back in the day, but it's still not great. He's still a decent challenge, but I feel like everything Rhino does that's like interesting and cool, like Juggernaut does a million times better. So if I wanted to play against Rhino, I would just play Juggernaut, right? Like Juggernaut is like the new Rhino in my opinion for solo. And maybe that's why I like Juggernaut so much. So Rhino, I have no real reason to play him unless he shows up on marbles on a random stream night. But like for like actively wanting to play, like no, like it's just no, thank you. So I don't know. He's a little too punishing. You get in advance, it basically ruins your game. You flip down and you get in advance, like you definitely lost. It's not even that it's hard. It's just that it's not balanced for solo. And I mean that's okay. Not every villain has to be. It stinks when it was one of the first villains out there, but it's fine nowadays. So anyway, not a fan of him. Very rarely play him. So after that we have the other one, Green Goblin, which is Risky Business, who I actually like Risky Business a lot. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Risky Business is really easy. I still think on expert it's a decent challenge because of the forced flips. Like a lot of people are like, oh, don't flip it when you don't want it to be flipped. And that's easier said than done, especially on expert, where if he flips, he does like a lot, like 4 indirect damage or something like that on expert. It's hard to do that all the time, especially on solo, because the counters can go so much faster. So I still feel like on solo, he's a really good challenge. I like that flipping mechanic. I think it's fun. I think it's cool. They haven't really been able to replicate that much. I think, or not that I can really think of like a good replication of it. But he's good. He's a good challenge. I think that's why overall, like as far as the standalone scenario packs go, I still think Green Goblin is the best one out there, in my opinion. I still love both those scenarios. I still think they're a lot of fun, really cool. So like a lot, he's down near. He's gonna be near the bottom on that. All right. After that, we have Ronin. Ronin. I want to say he's not bad, but really, I'm not that big of a fan of him. We can put him there. The thing with Ronin is that he's easy to beat with a rush strategy. You can actually beat him very easily and pretty consistently with a rush strategy. The problem is you get stuck in that hole of just like, that's all I'm going to do because I don't know any other way to like play against him. Right? Like, and that doesn't feel as good. It doesn't feel as great. So I don't enjoy that as much with Ronin. I've tried to play longer games against him in solo, and like it's really hard to do because he could just randomly surge his way to like 15 damage, right? And there's nothing you could do about it. So like that part stinks. That part's not fun or enjoyable. But if you really want to play against a villain that can just like absolutely smash you and destroy you, like I guess it's good for that, right? I guess it's not bad. And I'm happy that we have more villains now. So he's still tough. He's still hard. I think now I've played him recently with Hope. Um, the option of putting in Hope, I'll put in like um, long shot as well into the encounter deck just to kind of like thin out his deck a bit and then just play easier modular sets. And then he becomes a little too easy if you take like really easy modular sets. But like mess around with his difficulty that way, I think is the best way to do it. He's still rough because he can still surge his way all the way through. But yeah, I'll put like Hope out there or something like that. I guess theoretically you could do Magneto too if you really wanted to like really make it easy. But the Hope set, while I like bashed the Hope set a lot for the stuff in Next Evolution, I am happy that it exists because to put it in something like a Venom Goblin or a Ronin, I think helps the scenario out overall. It helps a lot actually. So not a fan of him, but I don't hate him. Right? I don't hate him, especially now that we have a decent amount of villains out there. All right, after that we have Sabretooth, which Sabretooth was really kind of, I feel like got bashed because it's a very hard first scenario. The rush strategy is very strong against him, but you can play a slower game and still do well. I actually like Sabretooth a lot. Probably in the yeah, probably around there. I like Sabretooth. I think it's pretty interesting villain design with the way that he heals and whatnot. Like I think that's cool. I don't think it's terrible in the way that he works or anything like that. Like I think he's fine, right? I think he's fine. I like him a lot. I think he can be really tough on expert, and you just have to kind of like deal with that, unfortunately. Which it's fine. Like it's not bad that he's super difficult or anything like that. But yeah, I feel like he got kind of this bad rep right in the beginning because he is a very hard first scenario, and I don't think a lot of people were ready for it. I still think it should have been Sentinel's Master Mold, then Sabretooth. Now I know campaign story wise they couldn't do it that way, which is fine. I get why they did it. But as far as difficulty went, like I think that's how it should have gone. Would have made a lot more sense, and I think would have made people like Sabretooth more. But that's all right. After that, we have Sandman with his indirect. Everyone learned indirect because of Sandman, and I don't mind him. I like Mr. Sinister more, I think, but I put him around there, and not the higher up and not bad. Sandman's pretty cool. Indirect damage. Once you learn indirect damage and like learn to deal with it, it's not as bad. Learning to make sure to keep the sand counters in check, I think, is really good. Pretty strong. A pretty good idea overall. So I like Sandman. I don't think he's like amazing. He's not one I actively play, but I think for a first scenario villain, he's good. I think on expert he could be a pretty good challenge. Yeah, I think he's not bad overall. Like I don't mind playing him, so I think he can be pretty fun. After that, we have Spiral, and Spiral is a really fun design. I think is really cool. She's one of my favorites, right? She's absolutely one of my favorites. Really enjoy her. I probably put her. maybe there, somewhere in the middle there are favorites. I really like Spiral. I think it's fine. I think the whole corner thing is cool. I think it's an interesting, different design. Yeah, I like her. I like the way that she works. That even if you have somebody that doesn't scheme well, right, you could take the damage if I remember correctly. You could take damage, which helps like kind of get through the deck faster, which is nice, which is cool. I think that's well balanced and a good way of doing things. So I like Spiral a lot. She's definitely high up there for me. All right, next up we have Strife. Now Strife is fine. Strife is kind of weird. I like what they're trying to do with him, with the whole with 1B, which kind of goes into, after you do the first step, you get you place X threat there, where X is the most common type in your hand. Like, I like the idea of what it's trying to do. And then the whole 2B, where then you get more cards and then you increase the resource to pay for those cards. And again, then it's kind of punishing you for having more of like the same type in your hand, right? Like, I think it's interesting. And I think on Expert, he's a pretty darn good challenge, where again, his attack increases based off of the common type you have in your hand. I think it's cool. I think it's fine. I think I understand why they were doing the 2 extra cards to try to get like higher common types. I think if you just have a more balanced deck, it's not as bad. So I think he's very similar to not okay. I want to say that. I want to say he's similar to Mr. Sinister, but the amount I enjoy them, I think is similar. Right? I think it's interesting that if you're doing a hero that can't thwart a lot, I think he's really tough because it starts off with what, like 10 or whatever with Strife's Grasp on the side scheme. I've only done it like once where I've had a hero that couldn't thwart that well. And it was just kind of like not a super enjoyable time because you can't win unless you thwart a lot. The reason being is because when it switches to Living Bomb, right, Strife cannot be defeated. So you could get him down like to a very low amount of life and then try to flip it. But like if you have someone like Hulk or Valkyrie who are just like, that's not what they're good at. Like, it's very hard to do that, right? It's very hard to I don't know, just win or compete on that level with them. So, and I don't want to like blame the design because again, not every design has to be like super balanced for every single hero, but just I don't know. He feels like almost a little too easy for a stage 5 villain, right? Magneto always felt tough but fair, which I really enjoyed about it. Venom, Goblin, and Ronin are always like very hard villains. Strife just feels like more of a 4 difficulty, right? Like the 4th villain in a box. Again, I don't know. To me, he's very comparable to Mr. Sinister in difficulty level, which isn't a bad thing, right? It doesn't mean more difficult is better. It just kind of falls like this weird kind of space, I guess, for me, where I don't mind him. I don't think he's bad or anything like that. I kind of enjoy playing him, but I think if you just have like a villain or a hero that can thwart somewhat well, and especially when you have Hope on top of it, who can thwart as much as you can, like it's a much easier fight. Like it can be a very easy fight. So as of right now, he's not bad. We'll see over time where he ends up being. I don't know. Um, but yeah, he's not bad so far. All right, after that, we have Taskmaster, who is also not bad. Taskmaster is kind of easy nowadays. Let me scroll that down a little bit. He's kind of easier nowadays. Just because it's not the high threshold is a little too easy on the main scheme. Being able to just put in your captive allies is really easy, and those allies are really strong that they can bring in, which is like it's all fine, right? He's just a fine villain overall. I don't think he's meant to be super difficult, super hard. So he's not bad, right? He's just not bad. He's a normal difficulty. On Expert, he's a little tougher, but he's not too crazy. So yeah, just don't change the hero form that often. I think you'll be all right against him. That's really the secret with him. But yeah, he's all right. He's all right. After that, we have Thanos, who I like Thanos a lot. I wouldn't say he's a favorite per se, but he is a villain I like a lot. I think the Infinity Gauntlet on him and not Loki makes a lot of sense. I think he's well balanced. I like the whole snap mechanic. I think that's cool. He can be a little tough and rough at times, but I think that's good. I think it's good to have a villain that's that hard. Yeah, he's good. I like him. I think he's fun to play against. He's not someone I go against all the time. But yeah, I definitely do like him a lot more than Loki. That's for sure. I think Thanos and then Hela back to back were some really great scenarios overall. So I like his design. I think with the whole Infinity Gauntlet, the design is really cool. They obviously put a lot of time into that, so I think that's really neat. So yeah, I like Thanos a lot, and he has stayed up there pretty consistently. He could get up into favorites maybe one day, but I don't see him going below like a lot, at least not anytime soon. After that, we have the hood. The hood has the same exact problem to me as Crossbones. Is I just don't want to pull out 7 modular sets. Is really, and then like I know I could do like one at a time out of the box, but then it's just like I feel like then I'm just like searching through a box instead of playing a game. It's just too many. Now it's not that the hood's bad. It's just again I just want to play the game. I don't want to like search for modular sets. So I don't enjoy that part of it. I think he's a fine scenario. I think he's a little bit on the easier side, but he's not terrible. But yeah, I'm just not a super fan of the hood or anything. And it's mainly because I just don't want to deal with that many modular sets. And again, I understand that I can just pull them from the box when I need them, but then it feels like I'm being taken out of the game then to go into storage to like thumb through all that and figure it out. All right, after that we have tower defense. It's not bad. Tower. Oops, I forgot to drag it. Tower defense is not bad. I think. No, I probably like Hope's Captor a little bit. I think I played a lot of tower defense, and that's part of my problem with it. I just played a little too much tower defense. But I think it's a cool scenario. I think having the 2 villains out there and trying to like balancing it, I think it's cool. It's a very standard feeling set or encounter set, right? It's nothing too crazy, too out there, which makes sense. It's only the second one in the box, so I think it's good for what it is. I think it's fun. I think it's enjoyable. So yeah, it's not bad. Nothing too crazy. Up next is Ultron, who I like Ultron a lot. The only problem with Ultron possibly is that Ultron, when you do the Hawkeye ally strategy, or you have like Squirrel Girl in your deck, or whatever can take out a lot of the minion drones, I think it makes it much easier. And once you get around that, it's much easier. But he's still a really good villain, right? I think he became easier when you start getting those cards and getting in leadership. Leadership made it much easier, which isn't a bad thing. Or if you get to use Die Bomb or whatever, which would actually be really cool and like fun to do and like be a very powerful feeling. So all that like feels good and whatever. But I still think he's a tough villain. I still think he's enjoyable. He's well designed. And I think it goes to show how well they did. I think that first like final villain box. I mean, to have a villain that's lasted this long is pretty impressive in my opinion. That like I think most people would consider as one of the better and harder villains. I think it just shows how well done it was in the beginning. I think it's really, really cool. So anyway, like Ultron a lot, still play against him a decent amount. Sometimes I cheese him a little bit again with Squirrel Girl or the Hawkeye ally in leadership, because you can clear out a lot of drone minions easier that way. But other than that, I mean, still a very good scenario. Next up, we have Venom Goblin, who I like more than Ronin. I guess that's a positive thing I can say about him. But other than that, I don't know. He's okay, right? He's more fair than Ronin is. He's still difficult. If you change out his modular set so he doesn't get his goblin glider thing, right? You get rid of that. He's actually much easier and not that bad, but you do have to lean into justice a lot more, which isn't a terrible thing, but it just again kind of pigeonholes you into like what you can and can't do. But yeah, getting rid of his glider feels a lot better. It's a lot easier. If you put in Hope, it's a lot better and easier too, because then you can have Hope kind of go after the main schemes to kind of keep them all in check while you focus on him and his minions and stuff. So he's actually not terrible. It's just that glider is terrible, right? Once you deal with the glider, it's not so bad. So I don't mind him, but it's not one I actively play against. I still think he's better than Ronin. I think he's very, very challenging. And if you change his modular set, he's more fair. But it still feels like because, in the picture he's riding that glider, that like I still feel like the glider should be in there. So it's like kind of this weird feeling I have personally where like I know I can change out the modular set and make him easier, but like it still feels thematic that he should have that glider. So I don't know. That's like one of those weird things. But anyway, he's still while I'm not a fan of him, he really teeters between not bad and not a fan. He's right there on the edge. It probably comes to how badly he's destroyed me last time I played against him. Depends if I'm not a fan of him or not. So anyway, he's down there, but again, if you change his modular set, I don't think it's as bad. All right, then we have Venom, who I actually don't mind. I probably like Sandman a little bit more. Venom isn't bad. Once you plan out the chime counters and when to flip him and all that fun stuff, he becomes much easier to beat. Like, you just, again, understanding the timing of the flips and whatnot. So it's not bad. I just feel like I played a lot of Venom recently. I'm getting kind of tired of him. So I don't mind him. I think the design is cool. I think with the chime counters, I think it's cool. I think it's fun. But he's just one that, I don't know. I just haven't played as much as I used to. So, or no, let me take that back. I play him a lot more than I used to, so I don't want to play him as much as I used to. So, yeah, he's just not bad, right? Just to me, just not a bad scenario. All right, after that, we have a Wrecking Crew, which I know is really, really easy and there's a pattern and whatnot, but like it's still not terrible, right? It's not bad. I don't mind Wrecking Crew. Like I said, again, Wrecking Crew has a very specific pattern. I don't remember off the top of my head. I have to look at the cards. Where if you want to go after certain enemies first and make sure the active counter stays on certain other enemies, once you figure out that pattern and that understanding, like Wrecking Crew becomes much easier. Much easier. It's not a terrible thing, but once you like understand it, then it's hard to not do the most efficient thing possible, right? So it doesn't matter what deck you build, like the efficient thing is against the enemy. So they're not bad. I think they get a lot of hate. That I don't know if it's entirely well deserved. But yeah, I think it's fine. Right? I think it's fine. On expert, it's actually not that bad of a challenge. It can be pretty good. So at least they have that going for them. But yeah, it's not bad, but near the bottom. And then finally we have Zola. Zola I like a lot. It's probably at the bottom. Zola is still hard. He's probably the hardest villain in Red Skull because of the retaliate. I think that's rough. On expert, he's really tough. His minions are really tough. I think he's a really good challenge. But again, he's a fair challenge. He feels fair. Once you not exploit, but once you use overkill and whatnot so that you don't get retaliated as much, that helps a lot. Or you use cards that do damage without attacking, that helps a lot. So there are ways to get around like his retaliate. But yeah, Zola is not bad. I don't mind him at all. But yeah, definitely enjoyable. So let me just scan through these really fast. I would say the favorites is pretty good. I guess Hela is still my favorite, but I don't know. I really like all of these. All these are very, very close. Very close as far as my favorites go. Thanos and Ultron and Red Skull are definitely my top of my like a lot. This is definitely, it feels like mid tier. And yeah, this feels like it's in the right order. Not bad. Strife, maybe over time, would get bumped up to like a lot, but I don't know. Mr. Sinister, I think, again, I think they make sense at the top of not bad. I think all these look pretty good. I think over time, the Morlock one will fall down to like the bottom here. Collector 2 is fine. These are fine. All this is fine. Nebula will probably keep sliding down over time. Just Nebula's so rough. And then Loki will stay Loki. So anyway, this will probably be my official, like, again, this is just my favorite things for solo. This isn't necessarily like the best ones. These are just my favorite ones for playing solo. All right, hopefully you enjoyed that tier list. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What do you like? What do you not like? Who are some of your favorite villains? Who are some of your least favorite villains? I'm always interested in hearing that because I think it's pretty cool that we have a really wide range of villains nowadays. I think that's really fun and enjoyable. And while you're down there, make sure to hit like, subscribe, all that fun stuff really helps out the channel. See you all next time.